Welcome to another episode of Bible Talk, the place where we connect the Bible and everyday life. I'm your host, Keith Farron, and today I sit down with Stephen M. Miller, award-winning, best-selling author of more than 50, what he calls easy reading books about the Bible and Christianity. He says, my job is to take scholars' work and put it in language for the rest of us. And he does a fantastic job. And we look at some of the books that he's written, but primarily we focus on this new whole Bible paraphrase that he has written called the Casual English Bible. It's actually a work in progress, and he is releasing it a book at a time. He's about 75% done right now. He's got the whole New Testament completed, and it is fantastic. So we dive into his process, what led him to write it, the whole thing here in Bible Talk. So enjoy my conversation with Stephen M. Miller. Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining me on Bible Talk. It's great to meet you face to face in 2D.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you. Not everyone would.
Yeah. No, no, I'm excited. I mean, when you reached out and told me about this new Bible translation that you are creating, this paraphrase, I checked it out and I was like, okay, this is good. And then I look at some of the other resources that you have, and I'm like, this guy's written like 3 million books. And so I'm excited to even get to know you more and share not only your new translation, but some of your resources with folks here that are watching Bible Talk. So quick kind of overview. Who is Stephen M. Miller, and where are you calling in from, and how'd you get started in this writing gig?
I'm calling in from the suburbs of Kansas City. It's Olathe, right next door to where you have some friends in Overland Park.
Yeah.
Overland Park is the more uppity part of Kansas City. Yeah, but not the uppitiest. The uppitiest is another. The next one over, that would be Leawood.
Right.
That's the uppitiest.
Well, I grew up in Salina, so that's not the.
Oh, yeah, that's over here.
Yeah.
I grew up in Akron, Ohio. Started writing. Actually, the whole writing thing started with a high school teacher who said, hey, you should consider a career in writing, which would never have occurred to me because everyone I knew in my family either worked in the factory or the coal mines. Dad came out, Mom and Dad both came out of West Virginia, and Dad worked in the coal mines, but he didn't want to stay there. So he moved up to the Akron area and got into a factory job. So when a teacher recommended the possibility of working in an air-conditioned office kind of space, I thought, that sounds good. So I went to Kent State University, got a degree in news writing journalism. There's different kinds of journalism, and I wanted to do news writing work for newspapers because I thought newspapers had a future. Yeah. No one would have anticipated how the digital era has affected newspapers. So I worked for newspapers for a few years. After college, I worked for newspapers in college a little bit, and after college, a couple of years. And after a couple of years, I reached a point where I realized I'm either going to have to move from this small town newspaper to something bigger, or if I'm going to make a change, this is the time to make a change. And I felt, I don't know how to put it, Christian writing back then in the late 70s was terrible. It was just terrible. And I was really arrogant. I was just out of college, and I thought, what this world needs is a Christian writer with a journalism background. And so I asked, I sent a note to the top editor in our denomination, and I said, what do I do if I want to write about the Bible? What do I have to do next? you never ask a preacher that kind of question, because that's what they are, denominational headquarters. Even the editors there, they're preachers, former preachers. They're going to tell you to go to seminary, and that's what he did, and that's what I did. So I came out. That's how I got out here in Kansas City. Came to the seminary here, Nazarene Theological Seminary, and they didn't have any kind of a program for writing. They only had 3 programs. One, if you wanted to be a preacher, if you wanted to be a missionary, or if you wanted to be a Christian ed person. So I went for the religious education and then took all my electives in biblical lit and theology, because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know how to write about the Bible. And while I was going to seminary, I worked for the denominational headquarters as back then as an editorial assistant. So I worked there for a dozen years before I launched out into freelance writing back in the mid 90s. I think it was in 94. I started freelancing.
So then what was I looked at your Amazon page as I was doing my research, and it says 56 books on your, I'm like, okay. That in and of itself, I'm just thinking of the amount of time and energy, and a lot of your books are really in depth. And what was the first book that you wrote? Do you remember?
The first you give me the numbers, but I never count them because I don't know how to count them. Do you count leaders' guides that goes with the thing? Because I wrote the leaders' guides too. No, those don't show up. Do you count the books when you're the editor, your name's on the cover, but you assign some of the chapters to other people? So that was too confusing to me, so I just don't count them.
Right. I'm just going with the number that Amazon says you have. So my guess is it's including author, co-author, and editor. But what was the first book that you were the main author name on?
How to Get Into the Bible. I did that for it was Thomas Nelson at the time.
That's great.
It was they just came out with the actually I have it right here. They came out with the CEV, and they wanted an accompaniment. They wanted that's all they told me. They said, we've got the CEV, we want some kind of accompaniment book to go with it. Come up with something. And I came up with the idea of just going through here's Lamentations. Can you see it? The overview, and then the plot, the main scenes of the book. So every book in the Bible has that. And they got some kind of a cartoony guy to fill in the cartoons, and it sold really well.
Yeah, I am kind of having a deja. I don't want to walk over and start searching, but I am not. When you just held up the cover of that book, I am 90% sure that I have a copy of that book on my bookshelf next to some of my Bible reference things. When we hit end recording, I'm going to go over there because I think this might be coming full circle. I think I got that
cool
many years ago when I was trying to get
teenager
background.
When you were a teenager.
I don't know that we're quite that different, but so the first way that you and I kind of officially met when you sent me that email is you were talking about this new translation paraphrase that you're working on called the Casual English Bible, and I'm gonna, if people want to glance at that and read some of it, it's you've got it. I'm sure, where do I have it here? So we've got it here, and it's a work in progress. You've got the New Testament complete, but you're working your way through the Old Testament. So I felt like as I was looking at this that I had a chance to kind of get a little behind the scenes of kind of what was happening in the late 80s and early 90s with Eugene Peterson, kind of as he was originally wrote Galatians in common language for his Bible study. And they're like, you should probably do more of this. And then he started writing it and working his way. And I'm like looking at this as not this finished nicely bound deal, but I love that we're talking about this now. But I'd love to hear from you. What first made you say, let's just tackle a translation of the Bible? so
Uh,
so I think you might be my kind of crazy. So
I think it all has to do with God suckering me into this. I would, looking at the scope of what I've had to do, uh, not just the paraphrase, but the footnotes, the Q&A leaders guides, the maps. I would ne- that would have been too overwhelming. What happened was I was writing a book for Harvest House on Genesis, just an overview book of here's Genesis. And it occurred to me, and that's where I think God suckered me in. It occurred to me, and I think he's the one who occurred to me, um, to do a paraphrase of Genesis as research for the book and as a personal devotion. It was an experiment. I'd never done anything like that before. So while I was working on the book, I was paraphrasing Genesis as I wrote through it, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. I loved getting up in the morning and thinking, okay, I've got this chapter next to work on. And so I finished it, and I just decided to give the New Testament books uh, Luke and Acts. The two are written by the same person. So that's where I went after Genesis. Went to Luke and Acts, and I loved what I was doing, and I was doing these other books on the side, and more I was feeling like the other books were an intrusion into what I really wanted to be doing. Um, so in time, much to the dismay of my agents, Steve Lobby, he's not on board with this. doesn't really want me doing this because it is a money drain. I fund this thing with royalties from my books, and he's thinking you should be making money, not spending money. But I feel like I need to finish it. I took it all the way through the New Testament, and then I doubled back into the Old Testament. The Old Testament is harder. Um, uh, it's if you on a fun scale, the minor prophets are not up there with the Gospels.
right.
Uh, for
Really?
yeah, they're uh, and one of the surprises, I never realized how much guessing the scholars have to do, because there are so many words that are not used anywhere else. They just show up here, and some of the words uh, that they do use don't make any sense in the context, and they're wondering if they're missing some definitions. So scholars sometimes have to guess, um, and that's why when you compare the different paraphrases, some of them are remarkably different. It's not real often, but especially when you Hosea, I just wrapped Hosea up, and there was a fair amount of guessing, trying to
Yeah.
figure out what exactly he was saying and who he was talking about. Was he
Yeah.
talking about the northern nation, the northern kingdom of Israel, or was he talking about both of them? Because he jumps back and forth when
Yeah.
he's
So
so.
when and this we may go all Bible nerdy and lose some people, but I want to get into this a little bit. When you're looking at creating a paraphrase of the whole Bible, or even if somebody was just going to say, I'm creating a paraphrase of Luke, and you didn't do the whole Bible, that's still a major undertaking. And I'm just thinking some of the practical how-to of that. Are you primarily looking at Hebrew and Greek? Are you primarily taking five of the most popular translations and looking at how they did it and then putting it in your own words? I mean, kind of what's your process for getting to the place where you have this casual paraphrase. I love that even in your bio, you're described as an award-winning, best-selling Christian author of easy reading books about the Bible and Christianity. And what I have seen of yours, there is this conversational approach. And so I'm wondering to take that into the Bible. And I've read some of your casual English Bible and love it. And I'm like, how do you land on what ends up on the page, so to speak?
I've spent my career translating biblical scholars into English. They typically don't write for the rest of us. They are kind of cliquish to the point that when they're writing, they're very much aware of their peers reading what they're writing, and so they get a bit stiff and formal, and they just tend to turn off the rest of us. So I have made a career of translating biblical scholars into English. I consider myself more of a translator, I think, than a writer, because I'm using their resources and I'm just taking it's like going into a diamond mine. You got all this stuff you got to get through, all these words that they surround their diamonds with, and they hide their diamonds at the end of their feature. Journalists put it right up front. So I'm mining the biblical scholars, and I've got a lot of stuff, a lot of resources. One of the things I've been able to do, the Christian Publishing Association, they have a contest every year for the best Bibles, the best commentaries, the best novels, in different categories. And I've been judging the Bible reference and sometimes the Bible category since the early 90s. So I see what the publishers consider the best every year. I've got a book behind, a box of books behind me to judge for this coming season. So I've got a lot of resources. And when I'm looking at Hosea, for example, my desk is covered with them. I've got a table here if the dog is not down there.
Yeah.
The dog's not there at the moment by the window. And I've got a table over here. And I have those resources. I've got Bible Gateway up on the screen. So I'm looking at the different translations. And I generally start, the very first thing I do is I don't read Greek and Hebrew. I mean, I use the reverse interlinear, those things that let you see the English and the Greek and Hebrew a lot. But that's not where I start. I start with recently the New Revised, which I think is the one that scholars right now prefer. So I read it from the geekiest Bible translation, and I often won't even look at the others. I'll look at that, and I'll have commentaries around me, and it's a matter of taking the geeky writing of the scholars and just putting it in the kind of words I use when I talk to my son-in-law. My son-in-law is not a person of faith. My daughter is, but my son-in-law is a science kind of a guy. He's a doctor. And I keep him in mind, and I keep other family and friends of mine who are outside the faith in mind. And I'm always writing, and I'm always thinking, would he get this? Would this hold his attention? So I know you write and you target people. We were talking earlier off before you started recording about targeting the people who are in the church who just don't read the Bible much, which means you're targeting everyone in the church because no one's reading the Bible hardly. And I'm targeting the people who are outside the church with the presumption that it's kind of like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. If I can get my unsaved relatives to read this stuff, your people who are in the church who won't read will likely read it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I really like it. I mean, looking at it, it's not something that's in print yet. It's not something that you need to go. Again, I kind of put that up there. You just go to casualenglishbible.com and click on, when you're in there, you can just kind of click on, like right now I'm in a study of 2 Timothy. So I took 2 Timothy and I went in, and you got 2 Timothy 1, and there it is. And you got the clickable, notes. You can even, when you're hovering over it, you've got when I heard from you and you said that you had a new paraphrase of the Bible, I was curious, but I had no idea that I was going to find something as just significantly robust as what you have here, from having maps that put context on it, to having notes, to having questions that people can, you can take your own note, or you've got the intro notes for 2 Timothy, and questions for discussion, and maps. I mean, videos, if it's a passage that has a video reference. I mean, it really is something that is fantastic, and I think is going to be a terrific resource for people for years to come. And I think I'm gonna have you. I mean, we're already over 20 minutes. I'm gonna have you on another time when we can talk in depth about some of the background tools that you have. People can certainly go to stephenmillerbooks.com, or go to Amazon, or I was even looking at your YouTube channel, and you've got a lot of videos. And I mean, there's just the background that you have and the resources that you provide. I just think it really is fantastic. For people that are either wanting just simply another paraphrase, even in a similar vein. I when I was reading it, I mean, for people that are are familiar with the message, I feel like the Casual English Bible, and I don't know if I'm hopefully this isn't offending you or whatever. I felt like it was casual English. It was normal talk, but it was less, this is the wrong word, colloquial than I love the message as a comparison. I feel like it was like slightly more formal. I don't, that's not, and formal is the wrong word to use.
That's fine.
But it's kind of this in between of, if somebody's used to reading the NIV or the CSB or the ESV, and they compare things with the message, I almost feel like yours is a fantastic middle ground for that. So I love it.
Yeah, the message uses, colloquial is the right word, I think. He'll use things like he sowing his oats, for getting into trouble.
Right.
So he'll use those kind of, they're almost cliches. I don't mean to insult the message, but he uses a lot of those phrases that are real common. And I don't use those phrases quite so much because I don't talk in, I wouldn't say, I'm going to go sow my oats now that we're done talking.
I hope not. All right. Well, Steve, this has been great. I mean, I'm going to point people to this. I think I'll keep coming back to it. I think this will become one of the things that I highly recommend people do when they study the Bible, is to have have 3, 4, 5 different translations. That if you're studying a book and you normally read out of one translation, that every 4, 5, 6 days, grab a different translation and just look at it. And the Casual English Bible will be one that I'll go back to. I'm hoping that it gets picked up by things, when it's completed. I'm hoping it gets picked up by places like YouVersion and the Bible app, and into the Logos Bible software and all that, because it'd be, I really, really believe that this needs to get in more hands, and it's going to make the Bible accessible for both people outside the church and inside the church, that that are looking for something to just kind of help it make
You,
sense.
you are quite the encourager. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
I hope so. When I find something that I think is really going to help people dig into the Bible, then I'm gonna spread the word. So I love it. And thanks for being on. People can again find you, on Facebook, Stephen Miller author, again, LinkedIn if you're on Stephen Miller Books, the YouTube channel again, Stephen Miller the writer. Check it out. I'm gonna ask you a couple kind of rapid fire questions just for fun.
Okay.
One's going to be our segue one from Bible into things completely unrelated, just for fun. The first is what is a verse that you have paraphrased in the Casual English Bible that, and this may be putting you on the spot, that you really feel like kind of God gave you some insight that you keep coming back to that verse, that you just really enjoy this section of the Bible in the way that God kind of shared with you to share it with people?
If you jumped up to the end of Habakkuk, the last few lines of Habakkuk, when I finished paraphrasing it, I've never done this any other time. When I finished paraphrasing that, I was so inspired. I got up out of this chair. I went downstairs into Linda put a sign up that says the man cave. That's where I do recording. And I got out the microphone and I sang a song using the lyrics of it. I just started singing the song and I recorded it. I can't sing very well. And I gave it to my daughter who can sing. I said, Rebecca, this isn't I haven't done a very good job with this, but the lyrics are so beautiful. And I just feel like God gave this to me. Would you make it sound good? A couple weeks later, she has a 6-year-old boy, and Owen. And I came to Owen and I said, Owen, how's your mom doing with the song? And he paused and he said, terrible. And I said, well, what's terrible? And what's terrible about the song? And he said, everything. You should start all over. Okay, burst my bubble.
Right.
But that said, the song didn't make it. But the closing prayer of Habakkuk is just absolutely inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well,
Check
it out. Go to the Casual English Bible. Go to casualenglishbible.com. Look up Habakkuk. Read the end of that. All right. So here's another question. What if you were invited to one of those parties tonight with some friends where the meal was going to be everybody bringing their favorite hearty appetizer? What would you or you and your wife bring to share if it was an appetizer that wasn't going to be an appetizer, it was going to be part of a meal?
Wow. Dessert is easy. Appetizers, my family grew up in West Virginia in the farm area. I don't think we've ever done appetizers.
Okay.
It's like just here's the food, and we didn't even do dessert growing up. So I wouldn't bring an appetizer. I can't think of that. What would you bring? Pickles?
Okay. I like pickles.
Yeah, I like pickles.
You have to bring if they're going to be part of the meal, they need to be those like big ones that soak in the can.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you off the hook on that one. What is one city anywhere in the world that you've been to that you would love to go back to, and what's a city in the world that you've never been to that you would love to visit that's on the bucket list?
I've never been to Australia, so anywhere in Sydney, Australia would be wonderful.
Okay.
Never been there. Would love to go there. Germany is one of the most beautiful countries I've been in. Mm-hmm. I have friends who live in the Stuttgart area.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to go back there.
I mean,
I've
great.
been there. I've been there twice, maybe 3 times. But it's such a beautiful place, and my friends are such wonderful people. They're the family. We had a German exchange student stay with us, and we've kept contact with him and his family over the years.
That's great. All right. So last one. When you were in like junior high or high school, what were you doing after school, on the weekends? What was your hobby outside of school?
Boy, after school, junior high,
High school, whenever. When you were a teenager, what did you
high
like to
school,
do outside of school?
high school. I'm afraid, man. I worked at a gas station. Dad got me a job when I was in ninth grade. Yeah, because it pulled me off of. It's not a happy story. It pulled me off the track team. I was running track, and he got me a job. I mean, we weren't poor. We weren't rich, and we struggled. And he was trying to help me get money for a car, get money for college. And so I kind of missed that whole area of my life. So I didn't get into the after school stuff because I was working at the gas station.
Gotcha.
But if you need your tire changed, I'm good.
You're the guy.
I can change your oil too.
Well, thank you, Steve, for joining me on Bible Talk. This has been great. I want people to definitely check out Casual English Bible, as well as if you're looking, I mean, what you have as far as the books that you do have in print, so many as far as maps and context and background and overviews. I just filled with fantastic resources. So thank you so much for being on Bible Talk. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Keith, for having me. I was delighted. When I contacted you, I wasn't with the intent that you would actually invite me. I wanted to pick your brain on some stuff, and I'm going to do that later,
right?
Either off screen or if we do it again,
Okay.
Because you've got resources that I don't have, and I'd like to get access to some of that, at least in my head.
All right. Well, let's talk. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Bible Talk. Bye-bye.
Bye.